Okay, welcome everybody to the Do You Feel Like an IT Imposter panel. My name's Yolande Strengers and I'm an Associate Professor of Digital Technology and Society in the Emerging Technologies Research Lab here at the Faculty of IT. And I'm also the Associate Dean for Equity, Diversity and Inclusion. I'd like to start by acknowledging the Boonwurrung peoples of the Kulin nations on whose land I'm on today, and to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and also to ask all of you to acknowledge the traditional lands on which you're meeting on and today, understanding that we're all coming from different places and joining here remotely today from our own homes in a unique experience. So just a couple of housekeeping items for you all. The session is being recorded today and we're hoping to make this into some form of podcast or another form that you can access later. We have muted you all, and apologies, but just due to the size of the event, we won't be inviting others to speak today. But we do really encourage you to discuss amongst yourselves in the chat. This discussion is really about bringing your experiences to the fore and to share all of our experiences on what it's like to feel like an imposter and how we can overcome that. So please do discuss in the chat section that you have available to you. So this session is really for anyone who doesn't feel like they might belong in IT or even maybe in university. And it's for anyone who has doubts about whether IT is actually the right fit for you. It's actually incredibly common to feel like an imposter in all facets of life, but particularly for some people in the field of IT. And that's because we still have these stereotypes that linger about what it is to be in IT. And that stereotype of the computer nerd is often associated with IT degrees and disciplines. And we're really, in the Faculty of IT, we're really trying to overcome those stereotypes and to make our faculty and our degrees a really inclusive place for all students, and to make sure that we all have a role here and that we all can belong. So the purpose of today is to help you and all of us understand that we do all have a place in IT and these degrees can be for everyone. I just want to start with a very brief definition of what imposter syndrome actually is. It's actually a psychology term that came from the late 1980s by a number of women psychologists. And they observed this amongst high achieving women. But since then, it's actually been found to affect pretty much everybody. In fact, more than 70% of people feel imposter syndrome at some point in their lives or in their careers. And it's really about a self-perception that you're a phony or a fraud in some sort of way. It's for anyone who's ever experienced some form of self-doubt about your own abilities or your own talents. So I'm sure that thought resonates with many of you today, just as it has with all of us on the panel today in various ways. So let's get into talking about that. So my story as an imposter is I'm actually a sociologist. So I really don't have a place in IT, or I wouldn't have in the traditional sense of the term. But of course, I am in the Faculty of IT, and we do welcome people from different disciplines and different backgrounds here. And so I have found my place and certainly feel like I belong now in a way that I didn't necessarily when I started my journey into this career. But I would like to welcome now the panelists to you, because they are going to share their experiences of feeling like an imposter and help us kind of think about what we can do to overcome that. So I'll just introduce them and then we'll get into my first question for the panel. So our first panelist is Professor John Grundy, and John Grundy is actually one of the most senior and experienced people in our faculty. He is an Australian Laureate Fellow, which for those of you who don't know is one of the highest levels of honour that you can actually receive as an academic in Australia. So really at the top of his field. He is a Professor of Software Engineering and he's also, I think, curiously, a white man who's basically the majority group in IT. So I think John's perspective, feeling like an imposter, shows us that everybody feels like an imposter at some point in their career, including those who meet the stereotype or are certainly at the top of their field. So John's going to share that experience with us today. Our second panelist is Radhika Jain, and Radhika is a student here in our faculty. She's a student in the Master of Data Science, and she's also a member of our Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Committee. So welcome, Radhika. And finally, we have Dr. Teresa Lana Rodriguez. And Teresa is a lecturer of creative AI, and she's based in our Sensi lab here in the Faculty of IT. We also have Roisin McNanny on the line, and she is helping facilitate our chat today. So you might hear her pop in and tell us about some of the experiences that you're sharing in the chat as well. And we'll try and feed those in where we can. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to put my first question to the panel. And as I do this, I'd really love all of you to also answer this question in the chat so that we can all share our experiences with each other. So my first question for today is to ask the panel to tell all of us about one example in your studies or career when you have felt like an IT imposter. So I'm going to open the floor first to John to give us and share us that experience.
Thanks very much, Yolande. So my parents left school at 14 and 15. I grew up in the inverted quotes poor part of Auckland in New Zealand. None of my extended family ever went to university. So my uncles, aunts, cousins, siblings, most of my classmates at school never went to university. I had no idea what a university was, what a degree was, what even jobs needed. And this was at the final year of high school. When I did go to university, I had studied with people whose parents had been academics, taught in university, had degrees. They were completely familiar and comfortable. It was completely expected for them to go to university. And that certainly was not the case for me. So I felt like an imposter many, many times. I still feel like an imposter periodically. And I wonder sometimes, when will they catch me out? What's this person from South Auckland, father worked in a factory all his life, doing here, being a university professor?
Thanks, John. It's good to hear that everybody's feeling like it, even you. So, and of course, it's not something that goes away, is it? It's something that continues on throughout our careers and comes back and forth at different times. Teresa, would you like to tell us about your experience?
Yeah, well, I guess it would be in the first year of my PhD. So I did very well. I mean, pretty well in my master's, and I was pretty confident about, going into a PhD. But then during the first year, I started feeling, self-doubts. I wasn't sure if I made the right decision, because I was, surrounded by all these brilliant people, professors like John, and just, people that have so many brilliant ideas and so clever, that I wasn't sure if I was good. I started feeling doubts about, if my ideas were good, if I had what it takes to the PhD, if I was going to be able to finish, which is something that many people in their PhD, fear and think about. And, I think this is part of the problem for me, was that I was doing my PhD in Scotland, and I'm from Colombia, so English is not my native language. And yeah, part of the problem, if you've been to Scotland, you know what it feels. It's very difficult to understand people, to get used to the accent there, it's very different. So I was just having some problems understanding people at some point. And I think that just in some way made me feel like, instead of, acknowledging the problem of the language, it made me feel that it was my abilities. It made me feel like doubts, but it wasn't really that. It just, I was just feeling doubts of that, because I just needed time to get used to get used to the environment, and to, just doing a PhD, which is something that was very different to what I was used to as a student. And yeah, so that's my experience.
Thank you, Teresa. And of course, we're still encouraging you all to please also share your experiences in the chat if you haven't already, and to tell us about your experience as an IT imposter, if you're feeling that at the moment, or any concerns or questions you have about that. So Radhika, on to you now.
Thank you so much. I would like to talk about the time when I started my undergraduate degree in computer science. Initially, like most of the students, I was terrified of programming, but I practiced and I became good at it. I performed well at the university exams, started a coding club. The club had more than 600 active members. But however, I had that feeling that I wasn't good enough, not as good as my counterparts, that I didn't deserve to be the president of the coding club. I used to constantly compare myself with others. And at times I would panic if someone would ask me a programming related question, or anything about computer science in general. So that was quite an unpleasant period of my undergraduate degree.
Thanks so much, Radhika. And I can also share my experience, which is slightly different. I remember going to a human computer interaction design conference for the first time as a PhD student. And it was actually the clothing that made me feel like an imposter, because I'd come from an arts faculty where everyone sort of wore quite eclectic clothing, and everyone was very individualized. And I walked into this IT conference and everyone was wearing jeans and sneakers and T-shirts or shirts. And I was like, well, this is very strange. So it made me question whether it was really the place that I belonged. Look, I think that's really interesting to kind of hear everyone's experiences, and I hope you're also sharing those on the chat. Do we have anything at the moment, Roisin, that we can share?
So unfortunately, we're having some technical difficulties, and it's taking around 10 minutes in a delay for the questions to be published. But we can see the questions on their end as they come in. So if everybody could keep posting, that would be great.
Okay, we can come back to that. Well, let's move on to our second question for the panel, which is, can you please tell us about one strategy that's worked for you in helping you to overcome the imposter syndrome? I'll start with Teresa this time. Oh, you're on mute there, Teresa. If you could just unmute yourself, please.
Sorry about that. So the first thing I would say is to understand that that I wasn't the only one feeling this way. The feeling self-doubt was actually a very common feeling within many people in academia, even for senior people, as we've heard today. And that it was okay to feel that way, and that the important thing was to carry on, and try to put aside these feelings of doubts. One thing that really was good for me is that during the first year of my PhD, I went to this workshop on how to write a paper. And one of the speakers, a very important professor in the University of Edinburgh, decided to talk about the imposter syndrome and decided to share his stories about him feeling as an imposter in different occasions. And that just made me realize precisely that other people feel that way. And it actually helped me open up to others, talk to others, or, other students that were in my position as well, and to actually realize that, that many other people were feeling the same way that I was feeling. So it was, it was normal. So I think the strategy is precisely that, is to, to talk to people, especially people in your same position that can relate to you, that's what I felt. And it just helped me, talking to people that were in the same position than me, and to realize that they were having some experiences that were very similar to mine.
Thanks, Teresa. And hopefully talking about it today as well as helping anyone out there who's feeling in a similar boat at the moment as well. Yeah. So I'll go to Radhika next. If you could tell us about any strategies you've found effective. And you're on mute as well, Radhika.
Sorry for that. The one thing that really helped me in dealing with the imposter syndrome was to talking to people around me. In fact, I discovered that many of my friends felt the same way about themselves. And the fact that I wasn't the only one facing the imposter syndrome, somehow made me feel better. They told me that they thought that I was doing great, and they gave me some positive feedback, and I did the same for them. that made me realize that all the self-doubt and the certainty, like the uncertainty about myself was absolutely unnecessary. With time, I understood that comparing myself with others isn't going to take me anywhere. Gradually, I started feeling good about myself. I felt more accomplished. So, in a nutshell, sharing how you feel is extremely important.
Thanks, Radhika. Great advice there. And John, can you give us any strategies that have worked for you?
Look, a bit similar to a couple of the other answers. So first of all, accept that most, I would argue, people have this perception about themselves from time to time, sometimes very frequently. So I tell myself it includes me. It's okay. It's actually normal. You know, this is how a lot of people feel. I like to remind myself of any little tiny success I've had. So even sometimes it was getting out of bed in the morning, going to the university, working on an assignment, you know, getting a passing grade, great. Getting a good grade is even nicer, but even just getting by any little victory along the way really helps. Helps to remind me I can do it. I can achieve things like other people around me. And I like the one of not comparing yourself to others. I think that's a bad mistake. And so everybody's different. Everyone comes from a different background, has different strengths, different experiences, and it's not helpful to compare yourself to others.
Thanks, John. Yeah, I think that's the consistent message coming through from the panel today. Do we have some experiences or comments, questions from the participants online, Roisin?
Not yet, but
Okay.
I can share my own.
Great.
So I think I would probably echo what the others have said as well, but remembering, you know, good way to be a computer scientist or you know, somebody working in IT. We're all very, very different, and that's one of the beautiful things about this field, is that there's people from so many different backgrounds, and we all have value in the things that we bring.
Absolutely. Are we still having technical problems with the chat, or
We are, yeah.
Okay,
Unfortunately, yeah.
that's fine. Let's move on to our third question then. And again, we really encourage you to post this in the chat if you are able to access it. We're really keen to hear your own experiences as well, and for you to share those with others. So my third question for the panel today is quite specific to anyone who is thinking about doing a degree in IT with us starting next year or soon. And that is, what advice would you give to someone who is considering a degree in IT but feels like they might be an imposter? So just to mix up the order again, Radhika, I'm going to throw this one to you this time.
Thank you so much. My advice to someone who is thinking of a career in IT would be to be a part of student clubs, where you get to meet where you get the opportunity to meet like-minded people, work on some amazing projects, and pick up new skills. And there are so many incredible student-led clubs at Monash. And when you work in an encouraging, empowering, and motivating environment, it makes you feel good about yourself. Additionally, as I mentioned before, if you ever have a feeling of self-doubt, talk to people around you, people who care about you, and celebrate your victories. Even the tiny ones. Reward yourself by giving yourself a pat on the back, or maybe buying yourself a nice dress. And it's good to remember that everyone has flaws, everyone makes mistakes. It's absolutely fine, and be kind to yourself always.
Thanks, Radhika. Good advice. And are there any specific clubs that you would recommend to students that have kind of been helpful for you and made you feel part of the community here?
Oh yeah, so there are few clubs like MDS, Monash Data Science Society, and then there's Monash Deep Neuron, and then it's MCAF, Monash Automobile Club. So these are some amazing clubs, and they work on these incredible projects.
Great, thank you for that advice. Over to you, John. What advice would you give someone considering a degree
So
in IT?
IT is a very, I think, fun and empowering career. So I remind myself very often, being a software engineer means I can make a big difference in society in many ways. I feel very thankful and privileged to have the job in IT that I have. So you all out there also deserve the benefits of an IT degree and career. Why should only other people get that? Again, I suggest take advantage of things like industry-based learning, internships, study abroad, things like that. There's ways of kind of, again, interacting with industry, interacting with the kind of people you're going to work with an IT career during your degree, which I think is a really great opportunity. And again, I'd echo the comments that, network with people, join a club, work in a team. A number of our units, you work in teams on projects, and you'll be surprised how diverse everyone else in IT is as well.
Great, thank you for that, John. And over last to you, Teresa.
Yeah, I think the first thing again that I would suggest is to understand first that it is normal to feel doubts about your abilities. And I would say that many times when you're feeling doubts is because you're being actually challenged of something, and that is a good thing. So remember that, being challenged, it means that there is something worth pursuing there. So it takes effort to do that, but it is also very rewarding at the end, after you achieve what you have done. And another thing I would say, something that John mentioned, is teamwork. I think, we don't, possess all the knowledge, and that's fine. That's completely fine. But, there are so many people in the university and, in your teams that can work with you, and that collaboration, with other people makes the work better, and you can contribute your part, and other people will contribute other parts, and that really helps, to feel like you are part of something, and that you are, progressing as well. Part of living these feelings of self-doubts as well is about progress in your work, and that I think working as a team is something very important to that progress. Very few people work solo. Solo work is more a collaborative thing. So I would say that that's one of my suggestions, my advice.
Thanks, Teresa. Yeah, good advice as well. And I think for me, if I had my time over again, I did a Bachelor of Arts, but I would certainly consider doing a double degree now. I think that the discipline of IT is really embracing the social sciences, and we can certainly see that in our faculty and the number of projects that are focused on our mission for IT for social good. And having those complementary skills and considering those degrees in tandem, I think, is a really nice way of kind of thinking about how to approach this if you're sort of feeling like you're not fully committed to the IT pathway, but you're certainly wanting to work in that field or close to it. Roisin, do we have any comments or?
We do.
Yes, great.
Okay, somebody's shared a really nice experience here. So in year 8, when they first started becoming interested in coding, they picked up coding as an elective subject. But when they turned up to the first class, there were only 2 females in the class, themselves included. And they found this really unnerving and thought that they wouldn't be accepted into the class. So the question is, if we have a strong interest in IT but haven't done a lot of practice or study in the field, what can we do to prepare ourselves and make us feel more educated when coming into an environment where people may have a lot of prior knowledge about these subjects?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and a really important one. I think many of us feel, actually, because we often come into areas where we don't have all the knowledge and experience that we would like. Would anyone on the panel like to respond to that comment and question? John?
So we do assume at the university a mix of backgrounds. So when you come into IT, yes, some people have got a lot of programming experience or development experience, but a very large number of the class don't. Many, in fact, have none at all, even though some high schools now do teach some IT, coding, etc. So we do, understand there's a range of that. Again, the tutors are very careful to make sure they take care of people that have got lesser stronger background, and there's kind of a range of ways that we do that to again help people to develop their skills in various ways. And it's interesting how quickly people become very proficient and competent. So just because someone might have had a few years of say developing software in school or whatever, you very quickly catch up, I find. So I've worked with a wide range of people now. Once they've got to the second or third year of their degree, you couldn't tell the difference between those who might have been doing it for 5 years versus those doing it for 2.
Thanks, John. Yeah, good advice there. Anyone else want to respond to that question? Radhika or Teresa?
I would say, no, I echo what John said. I would say as well that you need to be, very focused. There are many, as I said before, there are many things. You don't need to know everything. But if you're feeling a lack of knowledge in something specific, just be focused about that, and just, there are many resources on the web. Something that I found very useful, so this Coursera, courses that are available online. You can do that for free. You don't need to get the certificate, and that helps a lot. It's, very short videos, and you can, find this knowledge out there as well very easily. So I think that would be one thing that I would recommend.
Thanks, Teresa. And any last words from you, Radhika?
We do have programming boot camps for the commencing students, who don't have experience in programming. So we do provide help that way.
Great point. Yeah, thanks for that. Yes, John?
I just point out, coding is only one aspect of IT, and in fact, we're desperate for people who can bring a range of other skills. So understanding what a system should do, requirements engineering, if you like, be able to talk to stakeholders, end users, really carefully understand the environment they want to use software. That's a really important skill set. In order to be able to code a solution, you actually have to know what you're wanting to build. And so we need people who can talk to other people, a diverse range of people in the community, to find those things out, make sure we're delivering the right things to them. We need to understand, ever increasingly complex information and data. We need to understand ever increasing complex environments we deploy IT solutions in. Those all require a wide range of different kinds of skills, and kind of the coding side of software, if you like, is a part of IT, but only a small part in reality.
That's absolutely right, John. And I mean, also, as my role attests, having the social sciences involved in the design and delivery of IT systems is also essential. So yeah, many skills coming into play there. Roisin, did you have a last comment you wanted to read out to us?
Yeah, it was just so, because the question was specifically around feeling prepared. We have links to all of the unit guides online for each of the courses. So you can go on and you can look and see what is going to be kind of covered in the topics and things, just as a nice way to feel prepared for the classes.
Great, yeah, thank you for that. Look, we're out of time, but I think this has been a really interesting discussion, and hopefully it's helped to make you feel that it's normal to feel like an imposter sometimes, and that it certainly it shouldn't stop you from thinking about a career in IT. So thank you so much for attending. We do have some more information about our equity, diversity and inclusion programs in our student life booth. And we also encourage you to visit the Welcome to Monash booth to discuss those issues as well. And I will personally be over in the IT for Social Good booth if anyone wants to come over and chat to me then there for the next few hours. So we can continue those discussions over there if you would like. So thanks so much to our panel and to everyone involved in making this one happen today. And also to all of you for joining us and for sharing your experiences where you could. Apologies for the technical details, but we do encourage you to keep talking about this with your peers and with other students. Thank you so much.